I ended up going to a concert, I think, and it was in New Jersey. And yeah, I had been to other concerts before, good concerts, but he just kind of, the whole thing just really blew me away, like how good he was. And it wasn't even, it was the songs, but at that point, I didn't really know even every song he was playing in the concert. It just the way he controlled the audience. He was just a showman. I mean, just knew how to front the band, just knew, that was Giant Stadium. So it was a huge crowd, 50,000, whatever. It wasn't an arena. And just how he really kind of just made it seem like a small space. And years later, right before he died, I think, or a few years before he died, Prince did an interview and he said something like he enjoyed watching Bruce Springsteen perform, and Bruce Springsteen would do things in concert that he only saw James Brown do. Prince had said that, and I kind of understood that because you see him live, and he really is just a master showman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Lusty Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and we are recording a chilly December morning here in Dallas. How is the weather there at your place, Joe?
It's actually a little warmer today.
Okay.
I'm in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. We've had a little snow earlier in the week, and it was very cold, but we got a little warmer today, so we'll see how long that lasts.
Well, that's very nice. Well, yes, Joe Nicoletti is joining me from the beautiful state of Connecticut. I am so thrilled you got up early on a Saturday to visit with me. Tell us a little about yourself.
I was, born in the Bronx, grew up in Westchester County, which is, for those that don't know, the county directly north of New York City. Grew up in Westchester, the suburbs, and now live in Connecticut. I'm married, have a wife, 2 children, and in addition to being a big Springsteen and the E Street Band fan, I love politics and pop culture and television shows and the Yankees and eating. Food. I like food, and because I eat, I tend to work out a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just a suburban dad living in the suburbs.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, great. Well, we always like to start at the beginning. So talk about growing up there in the, north of New York City. What kind of music did your family listen to? Were they musical?
Well, it's interesting. My father was a professional musician for a lot of years. In the 50s, probably the 50s, probably 50s, early 60s. He had a band, not like famous or anything, but in the New York City area, they had a bit of a following. They, recorded some albums, some songs. They were even at one point, I don't know, maybe 58 or 59, they were on American Bandstand. So with that being said, I wouldn't say we were really that musical. At growing up, I was probably more into collecting baseball cards than I was into listening to music. My sister, who is about 5.5 years older than me, was really the one that was kind of, listening to the radio. She knew the top 40. She knew all like the current bands, current artists at the time. I have memories, she was older, so she drove. I have lots of great memories driving around with her, and she would throw in the 8-track tapes into the car, and we'd listen to a lot of Michael Jackson, Donna Summer, Billy Joel. Basically, at that point, it was probably late 70s. So, a lot of that music. And I kind of liked music and I listened to music, but I wasn't like a fanatic about it. And I certainly had no knowledge at that point of Bruce Springsteen. Um, it's funny you say, were we musical? So growing up, we weren't, I would say, that musical of a family. As we've gotten older, we've had, plenty of like family get-togethers, where my father will grab his bass. It's still with us, thank God, and 92 years old, knock on wood. My father will grab his bass. Some of his friends will come with their instruments, a guitar, an accordion, and then they'll sing, for the gathering. And we've had lots of sing-alongs and people taking solos in the kitchen at 1:30 in the morning, things like that. So that's kind of, things have gotten more musical as the years have gone on. But as a kid, not really, not so much. And that is until I, discovered Bruce Springsteen, of course.
Yeah. So
Then it all changed.
what's your father's name?
His name is also Joe Nicoletti.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the name of the band?
If you go on YouTube,
Okay, which is what I was going to do.
It's the band. There was a band, the Gumdrops, and there's a song called "You're the One."
Okay.
That I didn't even know was on there, and then a couple of people kind of reached out to me and said, "Hey, this song, is that your father?" It's a very catchy tune, "You're the One" by the Gumdrops. You'll find it on YouTube, and it's funny because that, I warn you, if anyone listens to that, it'll kind of stay with you, and you'll be humming it.
One of those earworms.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, so he, was great. He was musical, and it just kind of was one of those things. I was doing my own thing. And then kind of years later, I kind of, got into my own music and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of funny because people will always say that to me. "Oh, your dad was a musician. You probably play every instrument, and or can sing." And no, kind of none to all of that.
What I'm thinking is, and maybe your dad, it was his job, so he didn't bring it home, right? Like a lot of us as parents or spouses, try to keep our home life and our work life separate. So that may have been his thought is, hey, well, music's my day gig, and then
it could be. And he was never one to like pressure me. Like, I remember as a kid, I played the clarinet in school, and I kind of hated it. He didn't let me quit, but after the year was up, he didn't force me to continue.
Right.
And so he was always good in that way. He kind of let me do my own thing, kind of like me and my son. I have a daughter I'm a big sports fan. My daughter is a senior in high school. She's a big athlete, plays track. She's good at track and field, good at basketball. I also have an 8-year-old son, no interest whatsoever. I've tried introducing all the sports to him. He's tried it, no interest. I'll try and get him to sit on the couch and watch the Yankees. He'll do it a little bit, but he tells me, "Yeah, I'm just doing this for you." There's no interest on my part. So, everyone's got to do their own thing and
absolutely
do what interests them. So that's no problem.
What, you just had an interest in collecting baseball cards? And
no, I mean, not real. I was kind of just, I was a baseball fan. Yeah, I was just saying, that's probably something I had more interest in at that time. So yeah, not a.
Yeah. Who was your Yankees? I take it Yankees always?
Yeah, sure. Yep. Yankees. Yeah.
And who was your favorite Yankee growing up?
Let's see. Well, let's see. I really got into it in like the mid to late 70s.
Okay.
And they were winning championships then. So, I mean, there were a bunch. I mean, probably, Thurman Munson was probably the big one. Let's see. Yeah, Thurman Munson. Yeah, Bobby Mercer. Yeah, those are probably the two, at that time. And then, of course, I loved Don Mattingly. And then, the later years when I was older, but all the later years with Jeter and O'Neill and Bernie Williams and those guys. So, but yeah, probably as a kid, Thurman Munson.
It's always interesting because I think I was not a sports fan growing up. My family was not a sports family, right? Like they didn't have a team. my father had no interest in sports whatsoever, neither did my mom. So I was a casual fan. In college. I got a roommate who loved the Saints, and so I would watch the
Hmm.
Saints games with him. And when I first married Linda, she loved the Houston Oilers, so we would watch a little Oiler game. And so when I moved to Dallas in '86, I kind of made a joke, well, hey, now I can cheer for the Dallas Cowboys and it's legitimate. I'm living in the
Uh-huh.
city. And I did not understand how big sports was in Texas, right? Like
Oh,
the
sure.
the
Absolutely.
Cowboys and all the different colleges and the passion that everyone has, whether you're an A&M Aggie, a Texas Longhorn, a Baylor Bear. I mean, just this back then it was the Southwest Conference, and they loved it. And so my son grew up, he was born in '89, is quick to tell you he was a Landry baby. He was born during the Landry administration, like only,
Uh-huh. The
like
last years, right?
yeah,
The
right,
final
yeah.
years of
Like
the
in fact,
Landry
he was born
administration.
in February, so like 2 weeks later, Jerry Jones bought the team. And so I always think of that the Cowboys, you either love them or hate them, and I think the closest to baseball is the Yankees,
Yeah,
right? You
sure.
either
One
love
or
the
the other.
Yankees or you
Yeah,
hate them. And
right.
so it's kind of fun. It is. I know that as a Texas Ranger fan, it was very satisfying for us when we made that first World Series to beat the Yankees.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
to see A-Rod, be the
Uh-huh.
last out was just kind of there. There is a
Right.
um, wonderful sports rivalry, and I'm going to get back to Bruce. But what I always think is funny is, I've had so many people on, and especially from the East Coast. So, I have Giants fans and the Washington football team and especially the Eagles. And they're always like, I can't believe I'm friends with a Cowboy fan. I'm like, yeah, I know. Bruce transcends
Right,
everything.
exactly. He does. Yeah, and I always tell people, Bruce is a big Yankees fan. I always like
Yes, he
make sure
is.
people know.
Yes, he does. You will see him
Um,
do that. Yeah.
yeah, it's funny. I a couple of years back, I went to a Yankee Rangers game in Texas.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was one of those things. My wife had a business trip out there, and we had my daughter was very young at the time, so I didn't have a lot of time to spend there. It was like
Right.
literally in and out the same day. But the Yankees happened to be playing on like a Saturday night, and she was there over the weekend, and I like basically flew in Saturday morning and flew out Sunday morning to get
Yeah.
back to my daughter. But yeah, the people there, I remember everyone was so nice. I've been to some stadiums around the country, and it seems like for the most part, people, New York can be a little rough sometimes, but when you get out of
Yeah.
New York, people are so nice. And I remember everyone was like, it was so nice. And it was like a rain delay at one point at the end of the game, and we were just chatting with everyone and talking, and it was just a nice night. And then it's funny, the Rangers ended up walking off the win in the ninth inning, so that
Yeah.
everyone was happy. Not me, but it was a good experience. And I remember seeing like that gigantic
Yeah.
football stadium in the
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah. The
That
Jerry
looked like
World. Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, that was something that that I
You
don't
know,
know if they were playing there yet
or
but it
they're
was
being
definitely
construction. Yeah.
built, and it
Yeah.
was something. Yeah, it looked amazing. I so so you're a Cowboys fan. So that have you been to a game there?
Yes. And listeners, I promise we'll get to Bruce, but I love this story. I love this story so much. When it was at Texas Stadium, we would try to go once a year, and it was a lot less expensive. I mean, it was expensive,
Sure.
but you could, you could tailgate, and the tickets were within reason. I mean, they were, you know, I can't remember, but it was, $50, $75 a ticket, and there would be a bunch of us going, and we would go. We actually went to one Thanksgiving Day game. That was our Thanksgiving celebration. We've always wanted to do
Hmm.
that. Chris did.
Oh,
And
sure. Yeah.
so we went. And so then when, you know, uh, Jerry World, as we call it, or, the Death Star, but AT&T Stadium, came on, and just expensive. I mean, $100 to park.
Sure.
Just the cheapest tickets, 250, unless you want to pay tickets for like $100 where you stand all game.
Yeah.
So we just never had. And I was working for a small company that sold Christmas trees and other Christmas door decorations. And also they did franchises, the decor group, where they would franchise different companies to put up Christmas lights. So like if you're a landscaping company, we teach you how to do Christmas lights on the off season. That way you didn't have to lay off your crew. You could just switch, do Christmas lights. And then when the, January or February comes around, you put the crew back to working landscape. And so the Jones family called and wanted to order a tree for the Star, the new, their new facility that's in Frisco, Texas, which my son has toured and says it's absolutely amazing. And when they got it, they called back and said immediately, we ordered too small of a tree. And I'm like, okay, got it. And the person they talked to said, well, there's nothing we could do. Once you open the box, we can't return the tree. It's, it's open. We can't do anything about it. So they ended up escalating to me. And I'll be honest, Joe, I'm like, this is the freaking Cowboys, like,
Sure.
have you even taken the tree out of the box? No, we haven't even taken the tree out of the box. I said, okay, tell you what we'll do. You bring it. He said, we can bring it in. I said, okay, you guys bring it in. We'll replace it with a bigger tree and you guys pay the difference. Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. So we did that, and the sales guy kind of chastised me, but I was like, look, I'm sorry. I just think it's the right thing to do, customer service.
Sure. Yeah,
Forget if it's
definitely.
even the Cowboys or not. So Gene Jones, personal assistant, called me and says, I just want to thank you. I said, hey, look, I'm just going to tell you, my son and I are huge fans. We watch every Cowboy game together. Even when he was in college, he would call me and we would watch together and stuff.
That's great.
They're like, okay, well, keep an eye out. We want to send you a little thank you. And so I didn't tell Chris because I was like, I don't want to get his hopes up. But sure enough, we had a courier bring it, and it was tickets to a Ravens game, and they were lower level. I mean, we were like 4 or 5 rows from the field. We were looking to go in, and he just heard me and he just said, yes, sir. We were looking, there's this huge line to get in, and all of a sudden Chris looks at like, we're allowed to go to a different gate. And sure enough, we went to a different gate, and it was the VIP gate, and we went in, and it was
the whole
the whole
deal.
thing. I mean, this
That's
is
awesome.
lower level. And Chris has gone to a couple other games with like a buddy of his will say, hey, I've got an extra ticket. Do you want to come? And he's gone. But he said, never. He says, you and me, we're never going to the other game, because after
Right,
you've
sure.
been first class, you cannot go again.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like seeing a concert, right? You're in the first row, and then
exactly. Yeah.
it kills it in the future.
So our perfect weekend, and he was talking about that, is we would love to, and this would never work out, but he says, I want to go see the Mavericks play in Madison Square Garden, watch the Cowboys play the Giants, and throw in a Springsteen concert somewhere in there. He says,
Sure,
that would be the greatest trip ever. Because we went to the show, one of those shows in the River Tour where he was playing the Met, there at Met. And we were really impressed with the stadium, and great sound system, the open air. It was just really beautiful. Now, you mostly a baseball guy. Are you a football guy at all?
Yeah, I'm actually I like the Giants, but I'm really more of a Jets fan. That's kind of so the fact that I'm not like a huge Giants fan, I don't like hate the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny, just not to go too much on a tangent. I think when there's teams that people hate, I think it always kind of makes it interesting. Like, even like I'm in the New York area, well, actually kind of into New England.
Yeah.
And, the Patriots obviously are big. And as a Jets fan, you hate the Patriots, but it's always kind of fun. Like, even if the Patriots are in the Super Bowl every year, it's always fun. It made it more interesting because you had a team to root against, and you rooted hard for the other team. And So it's always like when you have kind of, a villain, so to speak,
Yeah.
it's always makes it more interesting rather than having, two teams in a Super Bowl that, whoever wins, whoever wins.
Yeah,
So it's kind
exactly.
of, I think it adds to it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm kind of a Jets fan, unfortunately, and not much good news there.
yeah. Yeah, we get it. We understand. And well, good. So let's talk about it. When did you discover Bruce? And if you can, tell me what about him spoke to you?
Sure. Well, in the mid 80s, got my driver's license and I started to drive.
Mm,
And then obviously, like any young guy, you want to put the radio on and,
sure.
play something loud. And at that time, that 84, 85, whenever it was, I mean, you turn on the radio and pretty much, Bruce Springsteen was, going to be on a lot. So I heard a lot of his music. At that point, I think I heard of him. I knew that he had this great reputation. I knew that people loved him. I knew that he had this great reputation as a live performer. Didn't know too much of the music. I think maybe I had heard Born to Run and maybe like Prove It All Night. Those are the only songs I had ever heard in my life up until the mid 80s. So then Born in the USA came out and I listened, it was on the radio all the time. I ended up getting the album. I ended up going to a concert, I think, and it was in New Jersey. And I had been to other concerts before, good concerts, but he just kind of, the whole thing just really blew me away, like how good he was. And it was the songs, but at that point, I didn't really know even every song he was playing in the concert. It just the way he I controlled the audience. He was just a showman. I mean, just knew how to front the band. Just knew, that was Giant Stadium, so it was a huge, crowd, 50,000, whatever. It wasn't an arena, and just how he really kind of just made it seem like a small space. And years later, right before he died, I think, or a few years before he died, Prince did an interview and he said something like he enjoyed watching Bruce Springsteen perform, and Bruce Springsteen would do things in concert that he only saw James Brown do. Prince had said that, and I kind of understood that because you see him live, and he really is just a master showman. As far as what really got me, I would say that I think the writing, the lyrics are so just he'll find a little way to just throw something in there that just really brings you back. It could be just like the screen door slams, or the one of the songs, the light is slicing through the blinds. Yeah, there's certain things that he does in his writing that to me it really speaks to me and evokes emotions. As far as just to along those lines, the one song that probably after seeing him in concert, I said, okay, I got to go back now and get all the albums and listen. And I think the first one I got was Born to Run, and I'll never forget it. It was Jungle Land. Everything was so West Side Story-ish and very just I wouldn't say Shakespearean, but it was so lyrical, that album. And I remember the line in Jungle Land, instead of him saying, there's a traffic jam out on the highway and kids are fighting in the alley, he said the line, there's an opera out on the turnpike and there's a ballet being fought out in the alley. And that was kind of that, to me, that was like, the line that I think really I was like, oh wow, this guy really writes in a different way. And that was kind of the one song. I wouldn't say it's my favorite song, but it's kind of that moment I remember saying, wow, he writes like really different. So then I kind of, really got into it, and then went all the way back to Greetings from Asbury Park, and then kind of went forward and, ever since then. But I always enjoyed the lyrics. I mean, obviously he's a great performer, great, some of the songs are, not all written in that fashion, but I think just, I don't know, the writing, I've always enjoyed the writing as much as the music itself.
Sure.
which I
No,
also enjoy.
that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned you were kind enough to say that you've listened to a couple of shows, so you know my kind of preface I always ask, but I do think it's important to tell people that, I am a firm believer that the amount of times you've seen Bruce live is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are. There are people who have never had a chance to see him. There are
Sure.
people that have seen him hundreds of times. But for the record, you've mentioned seeing him, but do you keep count of how many times?
Yeah, I mean, it's been. I mean, I'm not in the hundreds or anything like that. I think I'm at 11, maybe
Okay.
12. I think I'm at 12. Yeah, I said basically from Born in the USA. I tried to catch him. I've actually had to miss a tour or two, but yeah, I'll try and at least twice each
Yeah.
tour. Sometimes the beginning and the end, that sort of thing. A lot of times he'll play Jersey like a ridiculous times in a row, like 15 times in
Right.
a row. So
Yeah.
we'll hit maybe 3 of those shows, something like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean yeah, I think I'm like maybe 13. Yes, I haven't kept an official count, but I'm
Okay.
not I'm in that maybe 12 or so,
Okay.
12 or
Good.
13. Yeah, I've
Um,
seen some good ones.
any favorite shows? Any favorite stories
Uh,
from shows?
I think let's see. I saw the first show back, or at least the first show in the United States, when they did the reunion tour. So it was Jersey. It was the first show back, first show that everyone had. The E Street Band was back, and it was at the arena in New Jersey, which is right next door to where Giant Stadium was. So it's it was smaller, maybe I don't know, 15,000 people, but it was so loud and people were so like hyped up, and just you could actually see when the band walked on the stage, like a couple of them kind of just like putting their hands over their ears. It was so loud, and that was just seeing them back together after all those years where a lot of people felt that maybe they wouldn't perform again ever. So that was kind of a good one. Trying to think. I saw he did a show that the proceeds went to the Christian Air and Car Foundation in Madison Square Garden. I think that closed the tour, or maybe it was the second to last show of the tour with the other band in the early 90s, the non-E Street Band. And that was fun because that was kind of very loose, and he played a very long time, and he had a lot of guests. That was a good one. One other one that was a fun one, I actually went alone to a show once. I
Okay.
had tickets. My wife, for some reason, couldn't go. She was away. It was late summer, maybe August or something. Every friend I knew was like unavailable, and I had these 2 tickets. So I ended up selling the 2 tickets and got just one solo ticket, but like a really good seat. And this was in New Jersey. So I sold it to
Yeah.
this woman, I guess a girl, I don't know, 20s or something. And I really had, it was the day of the show, had to get rid of the tickets. I gave her a good deal. She was really happy. So she, I show up to the show and to meet her to give her the ticket. This is before the days of emailing things and texting things.
Sure.
And she gave me this bag of like probably, I don't know, 20 or 25 CDs of all like bootleg live shows.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like great. For years I like listened to these things.
Yeah.
It was great. And so I'm alone at the show, and at that point they would set up, it was the summer, they would kind of set up a beach thing outside with volleyball and everything, and people would kind of tailgate all day. And I kind of ran into these people from England that traveled from England to see the show. So I had said, oh yeah, I'm here alone, blah, blah, blah. And then, so basically the whole rest of the night, or not when we went into the show, but the hour or two
Yeah.
before the show, they were bringing me beers, and I was playing
Oh,
volleyball with
fun.
them. They were talking about England and talking about, asking me questions. And it was just, a lot of fun, like just hanging out with these
Oh, that does
people
sound fun.
from, yeah. But yeah, I've seen some good ones. Nothing, I have a lot of memories of trying to see Bruce in Jersey, like in a bar, like that you think he's going to show up. I have one
Sure.
quick story.
Please.
Yeah. Fred, I was seeing Bruce at the Madison Square Garden on a Saturday night. It was towards the end of like that 92 tour. And he had an off night on the Friday night, and Clarence Clemens was performing in a bar, or it might have even been somewhere in Atlantic City, maybe one of the hotels. He was performing in a bar with his band the Friday night, and everyone in the world called me. They got tips that Bruce is definitely showing up to this show Friday night with Clarence. So all my friends, we drove down there Friday night. We're there. We get there. The whole place is mobbed. Everyone expects to see Bruce. And of course, Bruce doesn't show up. It's Clarence, but it was still a fun show and everything. So, it ended up being, that was the night that Bruce, it was Letterman's last show on the late show or late night, and Bruce popped on with him and did Glory Days. So anyway, that's where Bruce was. So anyway, but everyone was like, the whole place was filled. I kind of felt bad for Clarence and his band, because it was obvious, like so many people were there because they thought Bruce was going to pop in. So, but anyway, so slept over that night, drove back the next day, and then saw Bruce the Saturday night at Madison Square Garden. But I have so many memories of friends of mine who supposedly got the quote unquote tip. Oh, he's definitely showing up this night at this bar, this night at this bar. And I've never been so lucky.
Yeah.
But maybe one of these days, who knows?
Well, and I think one of the things you have to do is, yes, it's exciting to think about that, but kind of that's a bonus, right? Like if you get a chance to see Bruce, great, but if not, enjoy the band that is there.
Sure, absolutely.
And kind of that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did tell me a little bit about favorite albums, other things, maybe favorite songs that mean a lot to you or your family.
It's funny, the albums kind of move around and rotate.
Okay.
I'll have a favorite one at one point that I tend to listen to a lot, and then I'll go a couple of years I don't listen to it. I think it's funny, every once in a while I'll put a song on that maybe like didn't really resonate with me in the beginning. Could be a song that was, maybe he recorded 10 years back, and then I'll listen to him like, oh, this is a really great song. Like Hunter Invisible Game is a song that I never really paid much attention to, and then I think I heard it live or something, and I'm like, wow, this is like really good, and so I'll listen to it a lot. Favorite albums, it's tough because it's kind of, I mean, if I probably Born to Run or Darkness if I had to kind of pick two, but that really, there's so many that I like. I love Magic, love The Rising, love some of the early stuff.
Sure.
Songs, it's funny. There's not that one song. I mean, it's really me. I wouldn't say my family, because my wife tolerates him.
Okay. Yes. You have a mixed marriage like I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's for a lot of reasons, a lot of different reasons. She's gone to some shows with me. She's kind of is a little bit more politically to the right than me. I'm more a little bit middle of the road.
Okay.
She's a little bit to the right, and I think Bruce kind of annoys her with her politics, although I don't really think Bruce really, maybe in later years he has, but for the most part, I don't think he's out there, preaching from the soapbox that much. But for whatever reason, that's her feeling. So she kind of, I would say, is not a huge fan, but she's enjoyed some of the shows, and but it's weird. There's not like one song. I mean, Jungle Land's always a great song because I always that was probably the one that drew me in.
Reminds you of why you loved it so much. Yeah.
But I mean, there's just so many. I mean, like it's just so many. I mean, I can't like pin it down to one.
No, I
There's
understand.
So many great ones.
Yeah. Did how about your children? You mentioned one's a sports fan, one's not. Where are they in the Bruce thing?
Well, it's funny. My daughter is all into, the top, whatever the bands are of the day. I mean, I wouldn't say she's a huge music fan, but whether it's Taylor Swift or or whoever it is. She's even listened to some country, and she's gotten into country a little bit.
Yeah.
And she likes that. And then I'll always tell her, hey, Bruce Springsteen's done a lot of songs that are kind of country-ish, and
Yes.
now my son is very musical.
Yeah.
I listen in the car a lot, and he likes to listen to just music, and he likes listening to Bruce Springsteen. He sang a lot of the Western Star song, where he'll hum it during the day. I'll hear him humming like Tucson Train or Western Stars, or he's funny. He actually remembers songs. There's a lot of songs, even songs that aren't even like that maybe I played once or twice that he heard. Like
Sure.
He'll go around at one point. He probably hadn't heard the song in months, and he'll go around and he was humming Rocky Ground, like,
Oh, how fun.
on Rocky Ground, Rocky. And it's
Yeah.
like, and he's 8 and he's pretty fun. I mean, I don't even know how he would remember that, but I must have played it at one point. He had heard it at one point. So yeah, he's definitely will enjoys Bruce, and will actually knows some of the songs. So much more than my daughter.
So I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts on Letter to You and Western Stars?
Yeah, I love them both. Western Stars, I actually I thought it was beautiful, especially the film with the orchestra. I actually brought my mother to that. She enjoys music, and I knew my wife probably wasn't going to go with me. But I said to my mother, I said, there's this new album out. You're not going to know any of the songs, but he plays it with this orchestra, and it's at a barn, and you might get a kick out of it. So she's like, yeah, sure, I'll go. So she went. She's 85. But she enjoyed it. She enjoys music, and she definitely enjoyed it and thought it was beautiful. And I think she even got the album after that. I think she got the film version of the album, but she loved it. She loved everything about it, and loved all the songs. So I did enjoy Western Stars. I love the kind of that, there was that California pop sound a little bit, and then
wasn't it?
Yeah. And then kind of the got that, just the Western sound. Letter to You, I haven't listened to as much, but definitely, I actually have that album, and I enjoy it. It was great. There was that Apple TV special with the band, and that was great. Just seeing them all together, and they sounded good, and I enjoy it. And even that's one, my son will kind of go around. I'll see you in my dreams. He'll go around, I'll see you in my dreams.
Oh, nice.
Once he hears something, he's very musical. So maybe the thing with my father skipped the generation and went to him. But
that's kind of cool.
He likes, at that age though, it's one of these things where you can never listen to anything straight through. It's kind of like, okay, if he likes this one song, you have to play that one song like over and over and over and over again. It's not like, okay, let's listen to the whole album. He's like, no, let's play this one again. Play, what's the other one from that? The oh God, I'm drawing a blank. What it was, the older song. It was
If
one
I
of the
Was a
older
Priest,
ones.
or
Yes, that one.
okay,
He loves that one. And that was one of the ones where we would have to just like play over and over and over.
That's great. That's wonderful.
That was that one. That was great. I like that one.
Yeah. Good. Well, what are songs that you haven't got to hear live that you would like to?
I have never heard Jungle Land live.
Okay.
I know he went a while without performing it, but then I know he performs it. I've never heard that one live. Trying to think what else. I think I always loved the Fade Away. Like I don't think I've ever heard that one live. I enjoy how he sings that one live. But I think Jungle Land and that one I probably I've never heard, and I would like to hear it. Maybe Drive All Night, but
Yeah.
and then of course, the ones that he like never plays,
Yeah.
from the early years, of course, a lot of those. But yeah, I those are the ones that jump out. And of
Hmm.
course, I'm looking forward to them hopefully going on the road at some point and playing a lot of all the new stuff.
Yes,
Can't wait to hear
absolutely.
Ghosts, right? Ghosts should be
Yes.
fun when he finally plays that.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, that will be great.
Yeah, what about you? Are there songs that anything on your wish list that you haven't heard yet?
Um, so I was lucky enough to go to Broadway, so I got to hear The
Mm,
Wish, which was one of
hmm.
my wish lists,
Oh
one
yeah,
of
it's a
my
great song.
yeah. I would love to hear, because I grew up in Louisiana, and my college, where I spent 2 years and then dropped out, but um, the Cajun song Jolie Blanc is the McNeese State University fight song.
Hmm.
So like when
Okay.
they score a touchdown, the band plays Jolie Blanc. So
Uh-huh.
when I heard that Bruce had covered it, that is my wish to hear Jolie Blanc live, right? That cover song. Um, and then similar to you, there's songs from tracks like I'd love to hear Lion's Den,
Hmm.
from The Promise Ain't Good Enough. Um, I was, I came this close to, I love This Is Your Sword,
Hmm.
from High Hopes. And he was gonna open the show in Houston with that. And the story is Tom Morella reaches over right before they're going on stage and says, "Hey, this is Houston." And so they scratched that and opened with Seed. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and
Oh, that's funny.
what makes me sad is not only was I chasing, this is your sword, but the last time he played at Houston, he opened with Seeds, right? Because there's
Hmm.
that line, Houston Town, right?
Yeah, sure.
I
And
was like,
Houston
okay,
Town.
we've already done this, Bruce. Give me
Right,
my
yeah.
sword.
And it's
Uh,
so funny. Is it that
yeah,
much? Is it really a song that much about Houston, right?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's
Yes.
not like
So,
it's, Streets of Philadelphia or I don't know,
right.
something where it's really prominent.
And
That's
then,
funny though.
oh, we also had this joke. I think it was in Nashville. Uh, there was a sign, and the young man said, "This is my 19th birthday. Can you play the river?"
Mm.
And so my buddy Sam's like, "Has he listened to the river?" like,
Yeah,
like just because it
right.
mentions 19th birthday,
Sure,
don't know
right.
if that's the song I would ask to celebrate my birthday with.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
yeah.
hopefully him and his girlfriend did not have a similar fate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's
so yeah, anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
no, I
Any
think
stories that
yeah, we've covered a lot. I mean, I've through the years um seen a couple of the other band members. I saw a small intimate show that Nils did.
oh, that was
Um
nice, I'm sure.
and it was actually just him and I think his brother. Him and his brother,
Hmm.
basically two guitars. It was like a one of those intimate small places like
Yeah.
where you just have a little dinner and drinks and there's tables around, not big at all, very small. Reminded me almost like the place that like the Partridge Family would always like have their shows
Yes,
in, if you remember the
exactly.
show.
Yes, I do.
But yeah, he was amazing. He was great. I mean the things he could do with the guitar was amazing, and in such a small intimate setting was like really nice.
Yeah.
And then I went to Conan in the very early years of Conan O'Brien. I think his first year I went to one of his shows, and I was sitting right near Max Weinberg, so I kind of got to watch him, do his thing. And I kind of, after the show, he was kind of just, everyone was just disappeared. He was packing up his stuff, and I was gonna go up and say hi, but I didn't want to bother him, and
Right.
so I didn't. But he probably would have been nice and chatted. But it was just funny seeing Max. You see him so much, from the other view, and I was directly kind of in back of him and watching him, and yeah, even that was
Yeah.
just a lot of fun, seeing it in a different type of a setting.
Yeah. Well, I same thing. Niels came to the Kessler here in the Dallas area, very small venue. And it was just him. And it was the show where his van was broken into
Oh,
and
right,
all his
sure.
guitars were stolen, right? So he was playing on borrowed guitars, and
Mm.
it was just him on stage. And he played a lot. He did have like some kind of synthesizer or something, that would play a few songs, recorded music.
Hmm.
And then he had a meet and greet afterwards. He just sat in the lobby, and just
Oh,
everyone
great.
stood in line and got to talk to him. And I got my picture taken, and you know, he I rightly so, but I gave him a card going, "Hey, I do a Springsteen podcast." He
Uh-huh.
goes, "Oh, thanks. Mike, I have publicity people to handle all interview
Right,
requests." I'm like,
sure, yeah.
"Okay, yeah, I get it, I get it."
Yeah.
But he was really nice and everything. So that's good. Anyone? Who else have you seen?
Let's see. From the band,
Hmm.
let's
Yeah, from
see
the
if I
band.
have seen anyone. Yeah, so I never saw Steve, saw Clarence, Nils, Max. I think that's it. I believe, yeah, that's it. I know,
Yeah, we saw Little Steven when the first leg of his soul tour here in
hmm
Dallas, and we had a great time. And the night before, he was supposed to go to the um, House of Blues and do no, it was House of Blues, to do like a live, Little Steven Underground Garage. And they ended up, there was a birthday party there, this huge birthday party, so they didn't let him perform. So he and the band were all there just having dinner, but he he went around, and anyone who wanted a picture, he took it. And so I have a picture with him there. Funny story, right? It was me and another fan, and we were both standing together. And he's like, "Oh, do you two want a picture?" And she immediately like, "Oh, we're not together." And
Yeah.
Steven looked at me like, "Okay, sorry." It's like, "No, no, no, that's okay." Yeah,
Mm.
that's good. I really wish Jake doesn't tour. He's not been to
Right.
Texas. He's done a
hmm
lot of Europe, and he's done the East Coast, but I would love to see his show. I
Yeah.
and Max the same thing. His jukebox
Right, that
doesn't travel that
jukebox
far.
thing. Yeah, and he's been local here, like a
Yeah,
couple of towns over, not far.
yeah,
And yeah, just having that. But I'm sure that's a lot of fun also.
absolutely. Any final thoughts before I get to the Barry question?
No, just wanted to say, I've been working remotely at home since this whole thing started, probably since last March. So it's been,
Yeah,
year and a half, over a year and a half. And, you kind of go stir crazy, especially when no one's in the house. When it's during the summer, kids are
yeah,
around and stuff. But when they're in school and the house is empty, you kind of go stir crazy. So I just wanted you to know I kind of discovered your podcast that way. I needed to have something on, but where I could still do my work. And I kind of came across your podcast, and I, listened to, a number of the interviews, and it's, always interesting. And I've enjoyed the conversations, and you have some interesting guests. And, just wanted to let you know, it's been a good companion
yes.
as I've worked. So I, keep doing it, and hope you have, many more. And I look forward to, listening.
That is very kind of you. I appreciate it. It is truly just a lot of fun. Just and I just, I love talking to people, and I love everyone's different stories, and how there's a lot similar, but there's also everyone's unique.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's always a lot of fun. Well, I
Yeah, and
appreciate
I
it.
mean, you've had people like, very young
Yeah.
people, and a big range. I
Yeah.
people that aren't citizens of the United States, and
Yeah.
young people, older people. It's been, very very interesting, to listen.
And
And yeah, there's
yeah,
always more people to talk to, and then, as he continues to release more stuff, and
right.
there's always more stories and
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm sure people, I know, I think I had recommended someone to you that I thought would be a great guest. And
Yes.
I'm sure people probably do that all the time. Like,
They do.
suggest people.
And it's so nice. Like when I spent a really miserable year selling life insurance. I just wasn't very good at it.
Hmm.
And you're always prospecting, right? When you
Sure.
work insurance. And so I said in podcasting a little bit, I'm always prospecting, looking for guests.
Yeah,
And
sure.
my buddy, in fact, one of my best friends, we had dinner last night with him and his mom, but um, I talk about him all the time, Sam, and I'm just always like, Sam, you and I talk about Bruce all the time. You're a huge Bob Dylan fan. You need to join me. And he says, look, you know, um, and he quoted Kevin Pollak, the comedian, said that at this point now, your friend ask you to be on a podcast is like your friend ask you drive him to the airport. You're like, you really don't want to do
Right.
it. And so I said, okay, I won't ask you again. But luckily, most people just seem really happy to visit, right? They're
Sure.
like, oh, yeah,
And
great.
yeah, people like to talk about themselves and talk about things that they enjoy and are
Yeah.
interested in. So it's funny. I have a friend who actually he has some podcasts, but he actually produces podcasts.
Oh, nice.
And he actually he started to open up like studios across the country where people can go in and have do their podcast if they didn't want to do it at home, like if they
Yeah.
wanted some maybe hand holding, whatever. But it's funny, he's always of the belief like every single person in the world should have their own podcast. He thinks
Yes.
that, like the old adage, everybody's got one book inside of them, one
Yeah.
novel. He feels that everyone, has something that they'd be good at, and whether it's for their business or whether it's personal or whatever. He thinks everyone in the world.
Mhm.
But it's certainly there's some interesting ones out there. And
Well, I do agree, and I talk about this a lot because I get a little bit of pushback. Oh, I'm not interested. I'm not interesting,
right,
and
sure.
I really stress to people, look, I firmly believe every Springsteen fan's got a story
Hmm.
because each of us, have had unique perceptions and experiences. And some episodes may go 30, 45 minutes. Some I've gone, 2 hours. I've had to break them up in half. But, and I'm always very, very pleased that almost everyone at the end says that was so much fun, Jesse. I just
Sure.
had. And a lot of people will go, um, I'm so glad because my significant other is tired of hearing me talk about Bruce. So I get to talk to someone who actually wants to hear my
Right.
stories.
Yeah.
So absolutely. All right. If you joined us because you're a friend of Joe's, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and I hope you check some other episodes out. But I end every podcast with the Mary question. And what the Mary question is Jay Armstrong, who, by the way, has a brand new book out, Bedtime Stories for the Living. And I just put an episode out having him talk about his book, but he was an honors English teacher and in the Philadelphia area. And 2 days he would take his seniors and they would spend 2 days during the school year breaking apart Thunder Road, looking at all the lyrics, talk about the themes, talk about the imagery Bruce uses. And at the end of the 2 days, he asked his class the question, does Mary get in the car? So Joe, that is your question.
Okay.
Does
Well,
Mary get in the car?
I am an optimist.
Okay.
So my belief is yes.
Okay.
My belief is that they are two similar people in similar circumstances. And I believe that, yes, he convinces her to get into the car. She wants to get into the car and she does get into the car. So that's
I
That's
love
my
it.
answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Good deal. Very nice. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
I am on Twitter. I'm trying to think of it's Joe Nicoletti, but I don't even know what my Twitter might be, JJ Nickel or something like
Okay.
that. I don't know, but I'm on Twitter, Joe Nicoletti. I
I'll
have a
look it
whole
up and add that.
probably, yeah, I might have, I don't know, I don't know what I have, 50 followers maybe.
Okay. Well, maybe we can get you a little bit more of that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And great. This has been so much fun. I
Yeah, and I've
appreciate it.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, let's hope that the Major League Baseball gets their blank
Yes.
together and it was funny as a Ranger fan, right? They spend
Sure. Yeah.
so much money. In fact, they talked about that it's almost as much money as they did to buy the team, the ownership with this four
Yeah.
signings they've done.
Yeah.
But they were kind of like, we had to show that as a franchise we're serious. And
Sure.
so they kind of maybe overpaid for a couple of players, but
Right.
overall they're all fairly young. They all have a good history. And so that was kind of a nice thing. And then of course, we get a lockout. It's like,
Right.
damn
Sure.
it, the
I know.
Rangers
And
can't win.
the way this thing goes, this will drag on till spring training, right before,
Yes,
close
absolutely.
to it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I know it was. Yeah, it is exciting. Yankee fans
Mhm.
were hoping they do something. They're kind of sitting on their hands,
Yeah.
and now they kind of have to. But yeah, that's interesting. It should be. They definitely made a splash there, the Rangers. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
so look forward to. You're right. Hopefully, they'll get their act together, and we'll have some baseball to talk about.
Absolutely. And it is at JJ underscore NICOL.
Okay.
Is your at least that's what it looks like. The picture looks like you,
Yeah,
and
that's
it
me.
says avid Yankees, Jets, and Springsteen fan.
That's
So
me.
unless there's another guy
No, that's
named
me.
Joe, yeah, that's it. All right. Listeners, please stay safe. Go get vaccinated. Go get your booster. Remember to social distance. Remember to wash your hands. And let's all be good to each other, because that's how we're going to go through this. Joe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We'd
you,
love to
Jesse. I
have you on.
appreciate it.
I'd love to have you on anytime. I don't know, maybe in the next summer in the middle of the dog days, we can have a baseball talk or something.
Absolutely. Definitely.
All right. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Joe. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. This podcast would not be possible without my wonderful group of patrons. I want to send a special thanks to John Munson, Mary Thomas, Terry Smith, Dale Hozick, Andrew Goddard, Stephen Malio, Alex Samada, Anna Lynn, Chris Bloom, Holly Mack, and Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Your support means the world to me, and you are forever in my heart.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.